Politics has always been a bit of a circus, but somewhere along the way the clowns took over the tent and started calling themselves public servants. Once upon a time, at least in the stories they tell in dusty history books, politics was supposed to be about serving the people. These days, it feels more like an ongoing talent show where the contestants are competing not for our trust, but for who can fake sincerity the best while keeping a straight face. Every debate is a performance, every handshake a photo op, and every speech a carefully rehearsed monologue written by someone whose main qualification is having watched too many soap operas. We've reached a point where truth in politics is treated like an optional accessory, nice to have, but not really necessary if your suit is sharp enough and your smile has been professionally whitened. The goal isn't to tell the truth anymore, it's to tell a version of the truth that makes the audience clap. That's why politicians rehearse spontaneous moments like actors practicing their lines backstage. Look concerned, laugh warmly, pretend you care about this child holding a balloon. It's all part of the act. And oh, the performance. They stand before crowds, sleeves rolled up, pretending to be one of the people, while their assistants make sure their coffee is the perfect temperature, imported of course. Their every word is tested, measured, and filtered through focus groups to make sure it won't upset anyone too much. You'd think they were marketing a new brand of cereal instead of governing a nation. The problem is, when politics becomes performance, honesty becomes a liability. Real honesty doesn't poll well. Imagine a candidate actually saying, "You know what, we can't fix this overnight, and it's going to take some uncomfortable decisions." That kind of truth would last about 3 minutes on TV before being replaced by a more positive, soundbite like, "We will fix everything for everyone." By Tuesday, the audience cheers and the lie wins again. Politicians have learned that people don't want the truth, they want comfort, and comfort sells. So they learn to speak in slogans that sound inspiring but mean absolutely nothing. A better tomorrow, forward together, change you can believe in. If you stitched all those slogans together, you'd have a blanket warm enough to tuck the truth right to sleep. But let's be fair. Some politicians might actually start out with good intentions. They arrive bright-eyed, armed with passion, and maybe even a touch of honesty. Then the political machine grabs them by the collar and whispers, "That's cute, but you'll never get re-elected if you keep talking like that." Suddenly, they're learning to dodge questions like professional athletes. Do you support this policy? Well, that depends on how we define support. By the time they finish their first term, they've mastered the ancient art of saying absolutely nothing with perfect confidence. Of course, the media plays its part in this grand performance too. The more dramatic the lie, the better the ratings. No one tunes in for a quiet, reasoned discussion about policy. We want fireworks. So politicians give us fireworks, bright, colorful, and entirely made of hot air. They've realized that outrage gets attention, and attention gets votes. Honesty, meanwhile, is sitting quietly in the corner, sipping its drink, wondering when it became so unfashionable. It's not that politicians don't know what honesty looks like. They just know it doesn't win elections. If they told the truth about the economy, the environment, or the state of government spending, people might panic. So instead, they give us optimism wrapped in fiction. Everything's under control. They say, as the budget burns behind them, "We've got a plan." They insist, flipping through papers that contain more talking points than actual plans. You can almost admire the skill. They've turned dishonesty into an art form. There's rhythm, there's timing, there's even a touch of comedy, unintentional, of course, like when a politician promises to cut wasteful spending right before approving a bill to rename a park after themselves, or when they claim to be for the people, but somehow every people they help has a last name that ends with corporation. By now, politics has become less about conviction and more about choreography. It's a carefully staged dance where every move is calculated. One step toward the public, two steps back toward the donors, spin left for the media, bow to the lobbyists. The music never stops and the audience keeps applauding, even though deep down we know it's all just theater. But the tragedy in all this comedy is that the public starts to mirror the politicians. When we expect lies, we stop demanding truth. We shrug when promises are broken because, well, that's just how politics works. The more we accept the act, the less likely anyone will ever drop the mask. And honesty, poor honesty, keeps getting smaller until it's nothing more than a punchline. Yet, every now and then, a rare soul wanders into the political arena and tries to be genuine. They speak plainly, answer directly, and refuse to dance to the usual tune. For about 5 minutes, everyone's fascinated. Then the system quietly pushes them aside because authenticity makes too many people uncomfortable. It's like bringing a candle to a room full of mirrors. Suddenly, everyone sees themselves too clearly. So yes, the theater of deception keeps rolling on, full of smiling faces and polished lies. And the audience, weary but entertained, keeps watching, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the next act will be different. But unless we start demanding better scripts, the show will never change. Because as long as politics remains a performance, honesty will always be the understudy waiting backstage for a role it may never get to play. ChatGPT said, "If politics is a theater of deception, then campaigns are the auditions. And let me tell you, the actors deserve Oscars for outstanding achievement in pretending to care. Every election season, the promises come flying faster than confetti at a victory rally. We'll lower taxes, raise wages, fix the schools, save the planet, cure boredom, and make every day sunny with just the right amount of cloud cover. It's a beautiful dream, but the moment they win, that dream gets tucked neatly into the same drawer where socks go to disappear." Campaign promises are like the buy one get. One deals at the supermarket sounds great until you realize the second one expired 3 years ago. They tell us what we want to hear, paint visions of a utopia where everything is perfectly balanced and everyone's happy. Then, when the votes are counted and the confetti settles, they seem to develop a sudden, mysterious condition, selective amnesia. "Did I say I'd fix that? I'll have to check with my team." Their team, of course, is a group of well-dressed experts in the ancient art of saying nothing while sounding busy. Once they settle into office, things change. The fiery speeches cool off, the bold promises fade into vague talking points, and the slogan on the campaign banner quietly transforms into something more realistic, like "We're trying our best, probably." You start to realize that the only thing politicians deliver with consistency is disappointment. On time, every term, without fail. It's almost poetic how campaign promises die. They don't go out in dramatic fashion. They just slowly fade away, like the last slice of pizza no one admits to eating. They start strong, full of passion and energy. "We'll clean up corruption. We'll end poverty. We'll make government work for you." And then they meet the cold, hard reality of bureaucracy, layers of paperwork, committees, meetings about meetings. By the end of the first year, the bold reformer who promised to change the world is too busy trying to find the right form to request another form. And when the voters ask what happened, they're told it's complicated. Oh, that phrase, "it's complicated." It's the universal political translation for "I have no idea how to do what I said I'd do, and I'm hoping you'll forget about it soon." If honesty were part of the job description, they'd just say, "We thought it sounded nice at the time, but let's be honest, it's not always pure deceit." Sometimes politicians genuinely believe their own promises. They start out with energy and optimism, convinced they'll be the one to break the cycle. Then they step into the political machinery and discover it's less like a government and more like a very slow, very expensive circus run by committees. Every bold idea gets passed through so many filters that by the end, it barely resembles what it started as. It's like making fresh orange juice only to end up with a single drop of concentrate labeled citrus essence. And yet, every few years, we fall for it again. They stand on that podium, smile wide, and promise us the world. We nod along, hopeful, knowing deep down that we've heard this song before. It's like watching a romantic comedy sequel. You already know how it ends, but you still buy the ticket because maybe, just maybe, this time it'll be different. What's truly impressive is the creative language they use to explain why nothing got done. We're making progress means we've discussed it once in a committee. We're reviewing our options means we forgot about it until you brought it up. We're committed to change means we'll bring this up again right before the next election. It's a linguistic masterpiece. No other profession could get away with it. Imagine a plumber saying, "The leak is part of a long-term improvement strategy," or a doctor saying, "We're committed to treating your symptoms eventually." They'd be fired instantly, but in politics, that's called leadership, of course. There's always the favorite excuse. We didn't realize how bad things were when we took office. That's the political equivalent of saying, "The dog ate my homework." Only this time, the dog has a government ID badge. They'll tell you that the previous administration left things in such a mess that it's impossible to deliver their promises. At least not yet. Give us time, they say, and we do. Then 4 years later, we're back where we started, listening to the next set of promises from the next polished performer. It's not just that the promises die, it's the funeral speeches that follow. We remain dedicated to our vision, they say solemnly, while burying their own campaign brochure under a pile of new talking points. And we, the loyal audience, nod politely, clap lightly, and prepare for the next show, because deep down we've come to expect it. Politics has conditioned us to treat broken promises like bad weather, unpleasant, predictable, and somehow nobody's fault. But here's the clever part: even when promises die, they never stay buried for long. Every election season, they're resurrected, dusted off, and given a fresh coat of optimism, a little rebranding, a few new buzzwords, and suddenly the same idea is revolutionary again. We'll reform education, we'll fix health care, we'll end corruption. Haven't we met these slogans before? They're like old songs remixed for a new generation. The beat's different, but the tune's exactly the same, and you know what? The voters are part of the act too. We complain, we mock, we roll our eyes, but come election time, we line up, ready to believe again. Hope is a stubborn thing. Maybe it's naive, maybe it's admirable, but it's certainly predictable. We want to believe someone will finally keep their word. We want to think that honesty and results can coexist in politics, even if the evidence keeps suggesting otherwise. Still, every once in a while, a politician does keep a promise. Maybe it's a small one, fixing a local road, improving a policy, cutting a ribbon somewhere, and suddenly it's headline news. Honest politician delivers on promise, as if that shouldn't be the default. But that's where we are. Truth has become so rare in politics that when it happens, it feels like spotting a unicorn at a budget meeting. The great irony is that the more promises they break, the more promises they make. It's a cycle powered by short memories and long speeches. They say time heals all wounds, and apparently it also resets all voter expectations. By the time the next election rolls around, the speeches sound fresh again, and we start clapping, forgetting that we've been here before. And so, in the grand story of politics, campaign promises aren't just casualties, they're sacrifices. They die so that ambition may live another day. But if we ever stopped applauding long enough to notice the pile of broken vows behind the podium, maybe the next politician would think twice before promising paradise on a budget if honesty in politics has taken its last breath. Then maybe it's time we, the audience, stop pretending we don't smell the decay. We can't just keep sitting in the cheap seats, eating popcorn, and complaining that the play is terrible. The truth is, we bought the tickets. We even applauded when the actors walked on stage. Maybe it's time to stand up, clear our throats, and demand a rewrite. Because if politicians are allergic to honesty, the cure isn't another speech, it's accountability, the medicine nobody likes but everyone needs. The funny thing about accountability is that every politician loves the word until it applies to them. We need transparency, they shout, dramatically pointing at everyone else. But when it's their turn, suddenly the curtains close, the lights dim, and they're nowhere to be found. It's like watching a magician promise to reveal their trick, only to vanish in a puff of taxpayer-funded smoke. Let's be real. Politics didn't become dishonest by accident. It became dishonest because it works. People lie because it's effective, and voters let them because it's convenient. It's like a bad relationship. We keep saying we want the truth, but the minute someone gives it to us, we get uncomfortable and change the subject. We say we want transparency, but what we really mean is, tell us what we want to hear, but make it sound honest. If we're going to revive integrity, we have to start by admitting we've been easy to fool. Imagine if every voter treated political promises the way they treat internet deals. You wouldn't just click "I agree" without reading the terms right. Okay, fine, maybe you would, but you'd still be suspicious about why they're offering free stuff. That's the mindset we need. Every time a politician says, "Trust me," we should automatically hear, "Read the fine print." Accountability begins when skepticism replaces blind faith, and it's not about cynicism, it's about curiosity. Ask questions, ask the uncomfortable ones, the kind that make press secretaries sweat. If a politician says, "We're investing in the future," ask, "Whose future?" If they say, "We're cutting waste," ask, "Where's the receipt?" The more we ask, the less room there is for rehearsed nonsense. The truth has a funny way of showing up when people stop accepting vague answers, but accountability doesn't stop at questioning, it's about remembering. Politicians count on short memories. They rely on the fact that by the time the next election rolls around, we'll be too busy arguing about something else to recall that they once promised to fix potholes, lower prices, and end all problems by Christmas. What if, instead of forgetting, we kept score? Imagine if voters walked into polling stations holding a report card for each candidate, kept 3 out of 10 promises, needs improvement. That alone would make campaign speeches a lot more interesting. Then there's the role of the media. Once upon a time, journalism was about digging for truth. Now, too often, it's about digging for sound bites. Headlines are crafted to shock, not to inform. But a strong, independent press is like a spotlight. It keeps the performers honest, or at least makes it harder for them to fake sincerity in the dark. The more light we shine, the fewer corners lies can hide in. And we, as consumers of news, can do better too. Instead of sharing every dramatic headline that matches our mood, maybe we could, just once, read past the first paragraph. Radical idea, I know, and then there's us, the citizens, the voters, the folks who technically are supposed to be in charge. Somewhere along the way, we handed over the keys and decided to just complain from the back seat. Democracy isn't a spectator sport. It's more like gardening. If you ignore it, it grows weeds. And the weeds wear suits and make speeches. Real change happens when ordinary people start showing up. not just on election day, but every day after. Attend town halls, write letters, ask questions, demand receipts. Hold them to their word like a parent holding a teenager to curfew. You said you'd be home by midnight. Care to explain why the national budget still isn't balanced? Of course, politicians have a wonderful way of pretending they're listening while they're actually calculating how your outrage might affect their poll numbers. That's why collective pressure matters. One citizen can be ignored, thousands can't. When voters unite behind facts, not slogans, they can turn the volume down on political noise and turn the spotlight up on truth. And let's not forget humor. Humor is one of the most powerful tools for truth ever invented. Politicians hate being laughed at more than being criticized. A serious protest can be dismissed, but a well-timed joke about their hypocrisy, that sticks, that spreads, that stings. Comedy keeps arrogance in check. It reminds the powerful that the people still have the sharper tongue. So, maybe the next time a politician promises to revolutionize government, we respond with a polite round of applause and a laugh that says, "We'll see." Transparency laws, too, are part of the cure. When the people can see where the money goes, who's meeting with whom, and why that one road has been under construction, for 8 years, honesty starts to look like a better strategy. Secrecy thrives in darkness, but sunlight, as they say, is the best disinfectant. Of course, some politicians prefer the shade, but that's exactly why we need to keep the blinds open. Now, reviving integrity doesn't mean expecting perfection. Nobody's flawless, not even the most well-meaning leader. But there's a big difference between being imperfect and being deceptive. A politician who admits mistakes earns respect. One who pretends they never make any earns suspicion. We shouldn't demand saints, but we should absolutely demand sincerity. And maybe, just maybe, we could celebrate honesty when it shows up. Not in a naive, confetti-throwing way, but in a way that rewards truth. Telling instead of punishing it. Because right now, a politician telling the truth is like someone walking into a costume party without a mask. They are not the problem, but everyone else looks at them like they're weird. That has to change. We laugh about dishonest politicians because it's easier than crying about them. But beneath the laughter is a choice. We can keep accepting the performance, or we can rewrite the script. It won't happen overnight. Nothing real ever does. But if citizens become the editors and the media becomes the mirror, then maybe, just maybe, politics could start resembling public service again instead of professional pretending. The road back to honesty starts with us, not with another campaign slogan or a flashy speech, but with a collective decision to stop clapping for the same old show. Because once we stop applauding lies, politicians will finally realize the truth is the only act worth performing.